Welcome back to Retro Ticket. This is Hari. In our previous episode about Aval Appadithaan, we saw the exceptional handling of feminism by director Rudraya and how the stellar cast helped him deliver a power-packed movie. In this segment, we'll be looking at why this movie is truly one of its kind in Tamil cinema and how it was a trailblazer at the time of its making. Every article or interview about Aval Appadithaan mentions that it was inspired by French New Wave cinema. But what is French New Wave cinema actually? French New Wave is considered as one of the most influential film movements that took place in the history of cinema. A group of critics who wrote for a French film journal called Cahiers du Cinéma created this film movement. It began as a movement against the traditional path that French cinema followed at that time. For decades, mainstream filmmaking, especially from Hollywood, set the standards and rules on how to make a film. The French filmmakers understood those rules and then threw them out of the window. Now, how did they do that? The linearity of storytelling was broken. Dialogues were often improvised on set. Filming happened on real locations. The camera was freed from the tripod and dynamic, handheld shots were taken. Available light were used and sounds were recorded on location. This gave birth to a new style, what the new filmmakers believed as being closer to the truth. Similarly, with Aval Appadithaan, Rudraya broke away from the traditional path Tamil cinema followed till that point and chose to tell a story in his distinctive style and rooted in the realities of that time. While critics label it as inspired by French New Wave, Rudraya felt time and again that elite critics forced reductive analysis of his creative visions by bucketing him into templates such as inspired by French New Wave or offbeat. In the words of his daughter Ganga Rudraya, the lack of commercial appeal for his homegrown worldliness was sometimes wrongly relegated to foreign art like that of French New Wave and therefore deemed incompatible to Tamil society. Though one can't deny the stylistic and spiritual similarities in them, we would like to honor the genius filmmaker by calling Aval Appadithan an original film set in the 1970s Chennai, made with sensitivity and realism by a Tamil filmmaker that continues to inspire generations of aspiring filmmakers, critics and fans alike. We want to showcase 3 scenes, each with its own unique grammar, epitomizing the avant-garde kind of cinema. Here is one of the movie's most shocking scenes. Let's watch.
ஒரு நிமிஷம் எனக்கு ஒண்ணுமே புரியல. எங்க இருக்கோம், என்ன பண்றோம், எங்க பார்த்தாலும் ஒரே அசிங்கம் ஆபாசம். என்ன பத்தி அவன் என்னென்னவோ பேசினான். கோர்ஸ் நானும் பேசினேன். But I came to a decision. எதா இருந்தாலும் மூக்க உறிஞ்சிட்டு மூளையில நிக்கூடாது, எதிர்த்து நிக்கணும். Doing it. Maybe I'm rude, vulgar, and unfit. But Arun, do you think so?
Hey, Manju. Manju, what is wrong? Manju.
Hey. Get away, you bastard!
Manju.
Hey.
Manju, please. Hey, hey!
I'll kill you! I'll kill you! Get away from here!
Stupid! Manju, na sir. Hey! Manju, hey! Manju, hey, Manju, please. No.
The silence in this scene is breached only by the sound of the toilet flushing in what is probably Tamil cinema's most unconventional kissing scene.
Manju.
This other scene employs the swish pan technique where the camera ping-pongs between 2 characters' faces at high speed, accentuating the to and fro nature of the conversation.
ஏதாவது முக்கியமான விஷயமா?
ஒண்ணும் இல்ல, என் படம் விஷயமா ஒருத்தர் சந்திக்க போனோம்.
யாரது?
பின்னணி பாடகி ஜானகி இல்லைங்க?
ஓ, அந்த மச்சான பாத்தீங்களா ஜானகியவா?
எனக்கு சிங்காரவேலன ஜானகியை தான் தெரியும்.
அவங்க வீட்டுக்கு மஞ்சுவை கூட்டிட்டு போறீங்க?
ஆமா, பேட்டி பார்க்க போகும்போது ஒரு பொண்ணு கூட இருந்தா நல்லா இருக்கும்னு நினைச்சேன்.
பொண்ணு மஞ்சு பூனையை கட்டிக்கிட்டு சகனம் பார்க்க போறீங்க. உங்க தலை எடுத்து உள்ள கொஞ்சம் வேலை இருக்கு, போகும்போது சொல்லிட்டு போங்க. கதவை தாப்பா போடணும்.
This technique was commonly used in French New Wave cinema and is in stark contrast to the more conventional way of showing the characters sit across each other and converse. In this scene, where Arun interviews women and girls in colleges and on the streets, what we see is actually Kamal talking to real people and not actors playing their parts, blurring the line between fiction and reality.
What do you think about premarital sex and legalized abortion?
I agree with legalized abortion.
Pardon?
I agree with legalized abortion.
You do agree?
Yeah.
Any of you here belong to any political organization or party?
No.
அரசியல்ல யாருக்குமே நம்பிக்கை இல்லையா இல்ல அதுல இன்ட்ரெஸ்ட் இல்லையா?
இந்த வயசுக்குள்ள நம்ம அதை பத்தி தெரியாதே.
So இப்ப அத பத்தி தெரிஞ்சுக்க விரும்பல.
At this age we are not bothered about that.
இப்ப ஆம்பளைங்க எல்லாம் வந்து அவங்க மட்டும் தண்ணி போட்டுக்கறாங்க, ரெண்டு பொண்டாட்டி வச்சுக்கறாங்க, சின்ன வீடு வச்சுக்கறாங்க. உங்களுக்கு என்னைக்காவது தோணுனது உண்டா இவங்களுக்கு எல்லாம் இவ்வளவு இருக்கும்போது நம்ம ஏன் அதெல்லாம் செய்ய கூடாதுன்னு உங்களுக்கு என்னைக்காவது தோணுதா?
தோணும், கண்டிப்பா தோணும்.
Commercial films made with somewhat art house sensibilities like Balu Mahendra movies came to stay, but true avant-garde movies like this one never really happened again. How much more meta can a movie get? Rudraya, a young and idealistic filmmaker, directs Aval Appadithan, a movie on women's liberation. Arun, the idealistic young filmmaker, makes Mulu Vanil Oru Paadi, a movie about women in our society. Where does Rudraya end and Arun begin? Where does Aval Appadithan end and Mulu Vanil Oru Paadi begin?
The cinematographer of Aval Appadithan, Mr. Nallu Swami, was my photography teacher in college. Honestly, back then I was not very excited about old films and black and white films. I've also heard people saying, oh, Aval Appadithan, it is like a boring documentary. So I didn't even try to watch it. My teacher was for me someone who shot an old black and white Tamil film. After college, I went to Film Institute in Pune, FTII, for post-graduation. It opened up a whole new world for me. I was introduced to world cinema as well as the rich parallel cinema movement in India. I finally managed to watch Aval Appadithan and I realized what a phenomenal film my teacher was part of, and I regretted for not watching it in college. The film is made by a team of film school students but featuring mainstream actors. Actually, film students watch a lot of world cinema and wouldn't confine themselves to the norms set by the industry. They develop a sensibility that challenges orthodoxy in society as well as in cinema. So the market always remained divided as mainstream and parallel. Aval Appadithan is a unique film which actually saw the coming together of both. It had the aesthetic and rebellion of a film school student, but it also featured popular stars from the mainstream. In my opinion, this was the first step, and the gap was finally bridged when Naduvula Konjam Pakkatha Kaanum became a hit, a film that was again made by a crew of Film Institute graduates.
Aval Appadithan saw the coming together of some of the finest and most radical young minds at the time, intent on breaking established conventions. Acclaimed screenwriter and long-term KB associate Ananthu introduced Rudraya to Kamal as a brilliant Film Institute student wanting to make world-class cinema. Through Rudraya, his Film Institute junior, storywriter K. Rajeshwar, whose two-page story became Aval Appadithan, and cinematographer Nallu Swami joined in, and the stage was set. The movie was co-produced by Rudraya in association with the students of the MGR Government Film and Television Training Institute, a first such initiative. The movie even opens with a welcome note thanking everybody who helped in this kanni muyarchi. Rather ironically, the fate of this genre of movies in our cinematic history can be likened to that of the technicians involved in making this movie. Director Rudraya made only 2 movies. His second, Gramathu Adhyayam, bombed. Kamal backed out of his next movie, Raja Ennai Mannithu Vidu, to move on to commercial stardom through Sakalakala Vallavan, and subsequent projects failed to materialize. In a beautiful piece penned by his daughter on the eve of his second death anniversary in November 2016, She talks about how the making of cinema became a dreamy, if elusive, goal for the entire family and how he loved people rather than cinema. As Manju remained forever and yet fiercely independent, so was probably Rudraya. Aval Appadithan. K. Rajeshwar, credited as a writer in the name of Somasundareshwar, was arguably the most commercially successful of all the core technicians, directing more than half a dozen movies, with Amaran and Idaya Tamarai probably being the most popular, while also being a prolific screenwriter. Nallu Swami, who alongside Jnana Shekharan won the Best Cinematography State Award for this film, teaches filmmaking, while assistant director Arun Mori, a close friend of Rudraya, became a reputed docu-filmmaker, yet another parallel with the film. Lastly, Anantu, to whom this movie is dedicated to, was one of the pillars behind the conception of this movie and a dear friend and mentor of Kamal. He became better known as KB's assistant while being an acclaimed screenwriter, with credits including Rajaparvai, Meendum Kokila, and Satya. However, he directed just one movie, Sigaram. Ilayaraja also lets his background score remain understated, completely blending with a new form of storytelling. This heightens the effectiveness of the conversations on screen, thus emphasizing the protagonist's mindsets largely through dialogues and not elaborate action pieces or sounds. Even here though, Ilayaraja delivers great songs. The gentle and reassuring Uravugal Thodarkadai, the pathos-filled Pannir Pushpangale, and the melancholic but philosophical Valkai Odam Sella. These songs continue to dominate our late night playlist even today. There have been a fair few Bengali and Malayalam movies made that have channeled the true spirit of avant-garde cinema, but these have largely featured relatively unknown actors and were specifically made as art house movies due to the limited commercial potential. However, Aval Appadithan delivers big both on star power and incisive messaging. Go watch and cherish this landmark Tamil cinema. They don't make such brilliant stuff often enough these days. Thanks to our wardrobe sponsor Fully Filmy for this kick-ass t-shirt. We'll leave you with a line from a Godad movie that we believe resonates rather well with Aval Appadithan. Life may be sad, but it's always beautiful. So is this movie.